Okay, so this is the final tutorial in the anime Japanese garden house series. In this one, we are just going to finish off the environment by making the petals and the wallpapers and the art hanging from the roof. Once again, I would like to give a special thanks to all the Patreons on the Golden Spoon tier list. Your support is always appreciated, and hope you enjoy all the files available on the tier list. But now let's get back to the video. So, we are going to start by making the petals. We can just leave the environment for a bit, go to the side and start making them. Bring in a circle. I didn't leave it the automatic vertice amount. I rather made it a bit smaller because this is going to be far away from the camera and it's going to be quite tiny. So all you need to do now is you need to extrude it a little bit and then duplicate it and press G and then Shift Z so that it moves around without moving up or down. It just moves left and right. So you can duplicate it a bunch of times, make a little pile of petals, so that now when we bring it into the scene, it looks like a pile of leaves. So I can station it however I want, and then I can put on the render viewport to see the shaders. Now, if you notice, the petals leave a little weird shadow on the carpet. That can be simply fixed by going down to the shadow mode and press it to none, because these petals are so small, it doesn't matter whether or not it leaves shadow on the floor. The shader is also pretty simple. We can delete the BSDF, bring in a mix color, and then plug a diffuse into the factor of that mix color. This is just going to act as the thing that separates the two colors that we are going to bring in through hue and saturation nodes. One node will be for when the light touches the petals, and one will be for the shadow. So I'm going to move the petals to the border of the light and the shadow so that I can see which output is being influenced by the light and which output is the shadow. It seems to be the A socket is the shadow and the B socket is the light. So for the light, I'm going to set that to a nice bright pink and bring the value up to maybe 2. And for the shadow, I'm going to bring it to a deep pinkish red and bring the value down to 0.8 or somewhere around there. I'm also going to bring the saturation up a bit. Essentially, that is our petals done. All you need to do now is duplicate it a bunch of times, edit the piles a little bit so that they don't look like they are duplications, and that is it for our petals. And for this tiny box here on the mat, all I did was bring in a hue and saturation node, change the color and the brightness through the value. This is going to be a little pink. Similarly, the jars, I edited just the colors and brought out the metallicness a bit, so that it can be a bit more reflective. And for the jars lighting, all I did was bring in a point light so that the jars have a nice highlight. So we are going to make the wallpaper now behind the jars here. I'm going to use this image that you see in front of you, but I'm not going to use the color of the image. I'm basically going to bring the image so that I can just use the patterns within it, but I will add my own colors. So bring in an image texture, choose any image you'd like, but if you want my image that I'm using over here, then you can download it from the link in the description. I'm going to bring in a mix color, plug this image into the factor, and I'm just going to set the top A socket to something dark and the bottom B to something a little lighter and make it peach. And then I'm going to bring a hue and saturation node and bump up that value to around 3. We're not done yet to this shader. I'm going to bring in another mix color, plug in the node 3 we just made into the A socket of the new mix color, and then plug in a color ramp in the factor and make a basic gradient node 3. For that, I'm just going to have to rotate the gradient a little bit on the y-axis. And finally, I'm going to duplicate the color ramp and then plug the gradient into that color ramp and move the black slider and plug that into the mix color that I brought in, that I also set to multiply. And now we have a shadow coming from the rooftop, which I think melds this wallpaper into the scene a little bit more. And I'm pretty satisfied with that. Moving on, we can texture the paint sheets hanging from the ceiling over here. I'm first going to make a normal paper texture. So it's just going to be a hue and saturation node set to a little bit red/pink, and make the value a little bit high. But for each paper, I'm making a separate texture and bringing in an image that is plugged into a mixed color. So this image is going to work similarly to the wallpaper we just made. Instead of bringing the image into the A socket of the mixed color, I'm plugging it into the factor of this new mixed color that I just brought, and I changed both of these colors, the top socket being a bit dark pink and the bottom a bit light pink. Just to note, if this is going to be a PNG you are bringing in, then make sure you plug the alpha into the color ramp, not the color socket into the color ramp. But if it's a normal image, like I'm going to bring in later, plug the color socket into the color ramp, not the alpha. But this is essentially the node tree for the papers or the art pieces hanging from the ceiling. It's just an image texture. Control T'd so I have a mapping and texture coordinate node plugged into a color ramp that is plugged into the factor of a mixed color that has two separate colors, one dark and one bright, and that is plugged into a hue and saturation value node, which is set a little high on the value, so around 1.4. Okay, so now we can just hide this door because I want to show you something. This balcony outside is basically just the wood texture that we made in the previous tutorials, and the light source is just the light wood material we made previously. And now for the trees. The trees I'm not going to teach in this tutorial series because this is a technique taught by ComfyMug. The link for it will be in the description. It's a pretty good tutorial, but essentially, it is the tree that he taught, and instead of making it green, I made it pink and used an emission node to make it a bit brighter. And these planes you see in the scene, they are here just to make some fake mist passes in between the tree layers. So at the back I have some dead trees, and these planes have a simple mist texture where it is just a mix shader, an emission plugged at the top socket, and a transparent node plugged at the bottom, and the blend mode of the texture is alpha blend, so that it can be see-through. But that is it for this series. I hope everyone enjoyed and learnt a bit from all the techniques within this series. I'm sorry if it took a bit long for us to release, because I am pretty occupied learning some other things, as well as handling some school assignments, but I'm glad we could finish it, and hope you enjoyed. From now on, I'm not planning on making any full-on series like this one. I'm more planning on making just small tutorials on special things or things I found out, because I'm going to focus more on learning some character design. But that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one. Alright, bye.